It was the year of 2012, just an ordinary Thursday in March. I had spent my day at work as usual, and afterwards I went to the gym, a common part of my daily routine at the time. I attended a power step class, and as always, I left the class feeling refreshed, strong, and alert. But as I walked to the locker room, I suddenly felt this peculiar stomachache, unlike any I had ever experienced before. It was as if a giant worm was squirming around inside my stomach. And as I made my way to the bus, the pain increased, and I experienced what I thought were flu symptoms. My body ached, especially my head and my neck. I felt feverish. My pulse was rapid, and I vomited when I tried to eat or drink. As soon as I got home, I called the emergency service center, and they sent an ambulance. The ambulance staff could confirm that I did have an elevated heart rate, but they did not succeed in recognizing any of the other symptoms, so they left. But they asked me to call back if it got any worse. The following morning, I succeeded in dragging myself out of bed and into the kitchen for a glass of water. But just as I entered the kitchen, I collapsed. My brother woke up from the sound of me hitting the floor, so he rushed to my side, and he saw that my face had turned blue. So he called the ambulance again, and this time it was really urgent. I clearly remember the ambulance ride, how the medic kept tapping me on the cheek again and again. Shahrzad, you just have to hold on a few more minutes. My breathing was becoming increasingly difficult. At this point, I had a 41-degree fever and a heart rate that exceeded 150 beats per minute. My body was covered in red dots. This was due to the ruptured blood vessels that were causing bleeding into my skin and organs. And that immense pain, which had started in my stomach, had spread out, and my entire body was succumbing. As soon as we got to the hospital, the emergency staff met us, and I remember someone putting his warm hands around my neck, telling me that I needed to be intubated and anesthetized immediately. He told me that my lungs were about to collapse, and very soon I wouldn't be able to breathe on my own anymore. And I told him, thank you, I just want to sleep. So fast forward a couple of hours. The attending physician requests to meet with my brother, who at the time is the only family member present at the hospital. The doctors explained to him that your sister is really, really ill. You need to call your parents and anyone you believe would like to be by her side, because I don't think that she will make it through the night. The blood sample results showed a very rare condition called meningococcal septicemia, which is a blood poisoning. So during the following days, I was still kept sedated and asleep. I had pneumonia, and all of my organs collapsed, one after the other. The medicines and the drugs were not having the desired effect. So my family and friends gathered by my side to say their final goodbyes. And at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, just 2 days after that very ordinary Thursday, my heart stopped beating. Exactly there and then, my story could have reached its end. But all living things, down to the smallest cells, instinctively fight for survival. And my heart started beating again. When I finally awoke after being asleep for 13 days, the situation still remained very critical. I underwent several blood transfusions, and the doctors operated on my legs more than 40 times in hopes of getting the circulation functioning again. But after 2 months of treatment, the doctors had no option left. So they told me, Shahrzad, there is nothing more we can do. Your legs are dead. The only viable option was to undergo amputation on both of my legs, below the knees. 3 months later, the big day had arrived and the time had come. I would finally replace my wheelchair with my new legs. In my mind, I thought that I had endured the worst, and from now on it could only get better. Even though I felt like a rag doll, I was so hopeful. I thought that I would wear my legs, and I would walk and walk and walk. My only goal was to make sure that everything would go back to the way it once was. But as soon as I put them on and I stood up for the first time, I realized nothing was ever going back to the way it once was, ever again. My new legs were heavy, they were bulky, and simply trying to stand up straight was almost impossible. Every step, every movement was unbearably difficult. And as I looked myself in the mirror, I was so surprised of what I saw in my reflection, merely a shadow of the person I once was. And the only thing that went through my head was, how am I ever going to travel the world and go on those amazing adventures that I had envisioned? How will I ever make my dreams come true now? And were there even any dreams left for me? All I could see and feel was how everything fell apart and my life had crumbled. So I gave it a few more tries, but it didn't get any easier, not even the slightest bit. To my devastation and surprise, the only scenario I hadn't counted on was the one that happened. I completely lost hope. I was small, I felt helpless, my body and spirit totally and utterly broken down. And with that, I lost my will to survive. I was done. So I spent months lying in bed in fetal position, hiding my legs under my bed just so that I wouldn't have to see them, pretending that they didn't exist. And this blur and this hopelessness that I had been left with was not for me. I could only see one way out of this mess, and that was to end it all. It seemed like the only logical alternative. But my suicide attempt, it didn't play out the way I thought it would. Because, as I told you before, all living things, down to the smallest cells, instinctively fight for survival. Some things somehow fought for its survival this time as well. And then I thought to myself, what now? So if I'm not supposed to die, what am I supposed to do instead? And suddenly it became so clear. I had to reinvent myself. Shahrzad 1.0, she didn't exist anymore. She was long gone. I had to let go of her. So I went back to the gym. At this time, I was seeing Kaisa, a personal trainer and coach, and she told me many times that we should take my training to the next level, maybe even compete in a sport. But with my total lack of interest in sports, it seemed like a really bad idea. At this time, I couldn't even stand up or walk, so I crawled on my hands and knees in the gym. But she planted a seed in my mind. And that seed eventually grew. So one day out of the blue, I told her, Kaisa, I've been thinking, maybe I should compete in a sport after all. She replied, of course you should. That's what I've been telling you all along. And I said, okay, so what should I compete in? And without even blinking, without any hesitation, she said, triathlon. And I told her, I can't swim. I am terrified of water. I know nothing of cycling. And even when it was possible, even when I still had my legs, I hated running. So maybe this isn't the best idea after all. Don't worry about it, Shahrzad. We will make it happen. Deep inside, I knew it was time to create new dreams, to go on new adventures. So I said, okay, let's do it. 3 days later, I was registered to participate in Sweden's largest triathlon. And to make it even more of a challenge, we chose the longest distance. 1,500 meter swim, 40-kilometer bike, 10-kilometer run, back to back. And we had 11 months to get ready. So for running, I have these running legs, or blade as they are called. They are specially made and customized to fit me. They are made out of carbon fiber, so they're really bouncy, so standing up straight and balancing while you are wearing them is really difficult. In these 11 months, we had a few moments of great success, but even more setbacks. I question myself on a daily basis. What have I done? Have I bitten off more than I can chew? Maybe I should just throw in the towel and call it quits. But I knew that was not an option. I had set up a goal. I had a dream to fulfill. That is not something you can just let go of. You are obliged to make it happen. So every day I put on my training clothes, ready to take on any challenge that my coaches lay in front of me. And then finally, the big day had arrived. As I jumped in the water and did my first swimming stroke, I knew this was what it had come down to. Every single thing that has happened to me since that ordinary Thursday in March had culminated into this triathlon. It was go time. The first 750 meters of swim went really well, but heading home was such a struggle. There were these big waves in the water, and I saw many of the swimmers hanging on to the rescue canoes. But I kept going, and as I came out of the water, I could hear my name. The audience were cheering for me. The cycling portion of the race went by so fast, I was on a roll. But I knew that I had to hold back, not push my legs too much, not to get too tired, because the worst was yet to come. And it turned out that I was very right to do so, because my right leg was so swollen that it didn't fit inside my running leg. And I had no choice. I had to push it in and make it work anyway. We had to stop 5 times to put on Band-Aids on the blisters and wounds that were caused by my running legs. On the 4th and final lap, I was in so much pain that I almost fainted. But once again, it was as if every single part of my body, down to the smallest cells, was instinctively fighting for survival. And the moment I remember most clearly is when we were running up the last long hill towards the finish line. My legs were so tired, and my body ached. Kajsa turned to me and she said, "Look at the finish line. You can see it now. This is it, Shahrzad. You will run the entire way and you will not stop. Do you understand? And I nodded. Suddenly, all the memories flashed before my eyes. Me standing there, wearing my legs for the first time, thinking that life was over. What I had seen and endured, the pain, the loss, and the agony, I don't wish it upon anyone. But this adventure, the sweet taste of victory, and that exhilarating feeling of pride that comes with accomplishing something you thought was impossible is something everyone should experience at least once in their life. And what a great loss it had been if I had missed out on all of this. 3 hours and 36 minutes after the starting signal went off, I crossed the finish line. The issues holding Shahrzad 1.0 back were mainly fear. Fear of breaking out of her comfort zone, fear of taking on the unknown, and fear of failing. You know, fear has a tendency to become very paralyzing in many ways. But for Shahrzad 2.0, the person standing here in front of you today, it is so much easier to appreciate the things that I do have and all of the possibilities that lay in front of me would I only dare to take the first step towards embracing them. Today, I never see the absence of my lower legs as a disability or even an excuse for not to take on anything and everything my imagination brings my way. It's just not acceptable anymore. In many ways, this ordeal has opened my eyes to all of the possibilities that I failed to see before. Today, I believe that the ability of dreaming boldly and freely and making those bold dreams come true is planted inside each and every one of us. But it is a rare luxury to actually make it happen, to take the first step towards making them a reality. Thank you.